Hello everybody, my name is Gambit and welcome to Infamous Synergy. If you are new here, welcome, and if you are not new, welcome back. Keep an eye on that subscribe button everybody, because we are getting closer and closer to 500 subscribers. If you take just a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, then I'm going to be a very happy person. A person who happens to be ready for today's topic. I think online gaming might be dying. And here's why. Back in the early 2000s, we all know that couch co-op games pretty much reigned. But as time began to go on and on, online games became more and more prominent. And some of these online games feature practically no story content or just very minimal. Some of these online games are very good, and some not so much. But overall, I just think the formula is kind of broken. A big part of the conversation often comes from the use of microtransactions. And as much as I'd love to talk about that today, that is not the topic of today's video. We can save that for another time. What I do want to talk about though is the way current live service games handle their content releases. They handle it in a way that can really make the game feel stale. Stale means boring. People don't want to play boring games. Tell me if you've had an experience like this before. A new game comes out and really starts to increase in popularity. You end up picking it up, it's pretty enjoyable for the first 1 to 3 years, but then your friends slowly stop playing it. You get to a point where it kind of starts to feel like it's dying. This feels pretty similar to the experience I've had with online games in the past couple of years. There are plenty of games like that me and my friends would play pretty much every night, but not so much anymore. But what I really wanted to tackle is why exactly is that happening? In my humble opinion, I think it is all because of drip content. For those of you who do not know what I'm talking about, let me explain. Picture a new game's release, and often the amount of content that can come with it. It's a completely new experience. There's places to explore, characters to learn, mechanics to try. It's fun. Playing a new game for the first time is a great experience. One that's even better when you start delving into the community and playing along with it. Then, after enjoying it for a while, you really start to get used to it. It just doesn't feel as fresh. This is usually when DLC and balance patches come to save the day. And that can definitely work for a pretty long time. A fighter here, a legend there, another killer down the line, but after a while it does get very repetitive. This can also add to why you don't feel like you're enjoying the game you used to enjoy so much. And that can also explain why you're starting to hate different aspects of the game as well that you didn't really mind that much before. Or aspects that you didn't like but kind of put up with them. In reality, chances are the game really hasn't changed that much. You probably have really just grown tired of it and not much has been done to change that. It's not always the developers necessarily not knowing how to balance the game, sometimes it is just us changing as players. And no, that is not a free escape for bad game developers. This is not always the case, as some of the devs of games aren't perfect, but it is worth some consideration. My main issue with live service games nowadays are they really just don't try to be innovative anymore. And some companies may decide to invest a little bit of money into a new game mode, which can definitely help, but emphasis on some. And sometimes the new game modes that we actually do get really just aren't that interesting. You know, often a character drops, you're maybe interested in them, maybe not. You play the game for a little bit, you've experienced a little content added, and then wait 3 to 4 months for another release that's potentially a lot of fun. But this exact format is also a double-edged sword. When you wait months for new content, and then they potentially drop a character or some type of patch that you really do not like, then you're going to hate the game a lot more. And the DLC can be dropped as either really broken or just really unfun, and you're not engaging your players that way. So, there's a couple of options here when the developers start to drop small content packages. They can release a character that is really fun and a lot of people like. That is very hard to do because people are hard to please. You can release a character everybody hates because of how boring or just unfun they are to play or play against. You can think of like Skull Merchant from Dead by Daylight, for example. You can release a character that is so broken as DLC that people just hate going against them as well. Android 21 and Bayonetta both really stick in my mind there. Or you can just drop a character that a lot of people just aren't interested in. Me personally, I don't play Vantage in Apex Legends. Not saying she's a badly designed character, but she's just not my cup of tea. Then everything has the chance of really snowballing. Let's say the first DLC drop of the year you're really not interested in. Then the next drop is a broken character. Then the next drop is a character that's just not healthy for the game and just unfun. This style of marketing just can really leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth. And that's when people start to come out saying a game is dead. But in the place of drip content releases, there are a lot of ways that you can drop content that really make the games more interesting and fun. But how do you do that exactly? The first great method comes in forms of expansions. Here are some examples of games with great expansions that really added a breath of fresh air. Let's take a look at For Honor's Marching Fire expansion. When this content was announced, my friends and I were all very excited, and when we got our hands on it, it was great. A whole new game mode, 4 different characters, new customizable content. It was a great time to be alive. I picked up one of the new characters and grinded the hell out of the game. It did not matter if the gameplay didn't have some big overhaul. I never had an issue with the base game much, and that was always fun. And then I got to enjoy in a new way and use these new characters in other game modes as well. I had a new character to learn, a new arena to explore, a new game mode, and on top of that, new characters to fight along with some of the reworks if I remember right. My next example would definitely be Monster Hunter World and its later released Iceborne expansion. When this expansion dropped, the entire game pretty much changed. There were more monsters to fight, weapons to build, armor to wear, the amount of possibilities pretty much doubled. If you ever want to add quality DLC, take a look at Monster Hunter. And last but not least is Dragon Ball FighterZ. Yes, I know, I gave them a bit of slack earlier in the video, but hear me out. Most fighting games follow the drip content format, and Dragon Ball is not completely exempt from this, but dropping 2 characters being Android 17 and cooler in one patch did wonders in terms of content. When games do stuff like this, it really just has the ability to shake everything up, and change the meta, and change this, and just give the players more options. Now, I am not saying every single game out there needs to drop some big expansion, or every single fighting game out there needs to drop 10 characters at once. There's a balance, which brings me on to my next point. This is the type of game that can manage to preserve itself pretty naturally. These are games with a very steep learning curve. There are games out there that you can easily sink 200 hours in just trying to learn the basics. Games like Smite, Tekken, and yes, Dragon Ball FighterZ again. These are games I feel like you could play for a long time and still really not hit that skill ceiling. But that's what makes playing them feel so good. You keep improving and you keep learning, and that's just a great feeling. You can really improve yourself mechanically or kind of learn a new combo. Or with games like Smite and League of Legends, one update and one item change might completely change the meta, and you might have to experiment a little bit to find out what builds are really strong. Games like these are really some of my favorites. I like learning new mechanics. I love always getting better and improving and watching my rank go higher, those types of things. But in this modern era of gaming and greedy companies, one type of game really comes to mind. Think of Elden Ring, think of Baldur's Gate 3. Hell, even looking back, you can look at games like Skyrim. The last category of games are games that are the full package. They might need a bug fix here or there, but 95% of the time they really do not feel like they are missing anything. Although you can play these games both single and multiplayer, the experience is what matters the most either way. These games are just everything you would ask for. When I tell you I've played through Elden Ring 9 times, yes, 9 complete playthroughs, I am not joking. That is probably more than the amount of times I beat the subspace in Smash Bros. Brawl as a kid. Games like these come out every few years and they are very, very special. So to summarize, you have your standard drip content online games, games that drop big batches of content, games with a strong learning curve, and games that are the total package from the very beginning. Some of the examples on this list run their course and eventually stop having updates. The main reason for these games dying off is pretty much the plug got pulled on them. But games out there that are slowly declining and slowly starting to die probably just follow that drip content format. I really hope to see more expansive and in-depth content dropped on live service games in the future. I would love to be hooked on some of these games again, but they really haven't offered anything up to pull me back in. Maybe one day that will change. But for now, that is the end of today's video, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and once again, if you like the content, please don't be afraid to like and subscribe. It really helps out a bunch. So keep an eye out, and I will see you all in the next one. Adios.